My ex-wife left me and our babies to find true love, and then demanded I pay for her husband's children's summer vacation. Listen to this, brothers. My ex would literally go crazy if she read these lines. I've been biting my tongue for years, and I no longer feel like acting like the nice guy. I'm 38. I'm a divorced man with 2 incredible kids who are my whole world, and an ex-wife bent on turning co-parenting into a genuine hostage negotiation. To understand how I got here, let me go back to when I was 27. I was living a quiet life, a stable job, daily exercise, weekends with my guys, and a small business of my own. Everything changed the day Phil organized that barbecue, and I met Brittany. I was on the other side of the patio joking about how crispy the burgers were, and she let out a genuine laugh. 8 months later, we were married. In hindsight, I hoped it was the start of something memorable. At first it wasn't bad, but it wasn't glorious either. It worked, more or less. When Brittany found out about her first pregnancy with our son Declan, I was over the moon. The purest happiness of my life happened when I held him in my arms for the first time. His eyes were like mine, and his nose like Brittany's. Those days were intense. I worked all day. Then I pulled the night shift so she could sleep. I remember walking in circles around the living room for 3 hours, singing any tune I could remember until the little one fell asleep on my chest. I didn't even move so I wouldn't wake him. However, something changed in Brittany after those first few weeks. She started acting distant, criticizing me for coming home from work and taking off my clothes sluggishly, reproaching me that she felt exhausted while I was apparently escaping everything. It broke my heart to see her like that, but I kept trying. Breakfast before leaving for my shift, nights watching Declan, planning dates. Nothing worked. I remember an evening 3 months after the birth, when I booked a table at the restaurant from our first date and ordered a necklace she had been wanting since before the pregnancy. I arrived with flowers, anxious. Her only response was a sigh. I don't feel like it. We can order pizza. That night she engrossed herself in her phone while I, with the necklace burning a hole in my pocket, drove in silence wondering if my marriage was already over. Just when Declan turned 1, I discovered an even more drastic change. Brittany was always on her mobile, hiding it when coming into the bedroom, getting defensive if I asked. My instinct alerted me one early morning. While checking on my sleeping son, I saw the light of the phone. It was 2 a.m. Who chats at that hour if not someone special? The following months confirmed my worst suspicions. After the birth of our daughter, Zara, I found a message from a co-worker, Jason, on Brittany's screen. I miss you. Instead of confronting her immediately, I watched in silence as she isolated herself more and more. One night, after putting the kids to bed, I took her to the living room and said, "Something is wrong. We don't talk or connect anymore. We're roommates." She replied without flinching, "I'm tired. I gave birth to 2 kids in 2 years. Forgive me if I'm not in the mood to pretend." And she added, "It's not a game. It's basic respect." I replied calmly, pointing out that respect was mutual. 4 months after Zara was born, I came home from work and found divorce papers on the kitchen table. No previous discussion, no therapy, no warning. It was over. "I deserve better," Brittany said with a victim's face. I thought about the 57 unanswered messages on my mobile from the nights I got up with the baby and how I had given my life for this family. I looked at Declan, building with his blocks, at Zara asleep in the swing, and I knew a nasty divorce would ruin everything. With a trembling voice, I asked, "Is there someone else, Jason?" She denied it with indifference. "It's not because of someone else, but because we don't work anymore." I knew she had been sneaking around for months. I agreed to split everything 50-50, assets, joint custody, and no alimony, since we both had stable jobs. Signing those papers was like amputating a piece of my soul. Then came the hardest part. Moving into a small apartment, setting up a mattress on the floor, and spending my first night alone while my children slept on the other side of town. I leaned my back against the wall with their photo on my phone until the battery died. Then I sank into the darkness and wondered how my life had blown up like that. Those first days as a single dad were terrible. The excitement of seeing my kids clashed with the panic of tending to a baby and a toddler alone. The first time Zara had a fever at 2 a.m., I called my mother, who calmed me down and assured me it was nothing more than a little temperature. She was my lifeline in those moments of chaos and sleeplessness, reminding me that despite the pain, I was still their dad and would always do my best. I spent sleepless nights watching her face while she slept, and when dawn broke, I breathed a sigh of relief, convinced I could face whatever came. The custody exchanges were awkward at first. We met in a Starbucks parking lot, avoiding looking at each other while switching car seats and diaper bags. Sometimes Declan would burst into tears when staying with me, and that destroyed me. Zara is too little to understand, but my son senses something has changed. I thought one day when he asked me seriously, "Why don't you live with us anymore?" God, how do you explain a divorce to a 2-year-old? I answered carefully, "Mom and Dad love you very much. We decided that by living in different houses, we can be better parents." He stayed silent for a few moments and said with an innocent voice, "So I'll have 2 bedrooms." A year after the divorce was finalized, Brittany met Derek, a part-time marketing consultant who worked about 20 hours a week while she covered most of the expenses. They got married when Declan was 4, and Zara was barely 2. Suddenly, my children gained a stepsister, Lyra, who was the same age as Declan, and then a little brother arrived, Nathan, who was 7. The first time I exchanged words with Derek was at daycare. I was helping Declan hang up his backpack when a guy in an Ed Hardy t-shirt, a fashion from 2016, appeared and walked up to Brittany. "Hi, you must be the ex," he said with a smile that made me want to respond with a punch. "I'm Derek. I've heard a lot about you." I shook his hand briefly. I tried to be polite for Declan, who hung his head. Then he laughed too loudly. "The kids look great. Declan is teaching Lyra to build with Legos. They're like 2 drops of water." That tone of his, as if he were already appropriating my son, tensed my jaw, but I held back. "That's great. Declan has always liked to share," I said apologetically, ruffling my son's hair. I remember the first time I dropped the kids off at their new home. Brittany had hung a wooden sign painted in various colors on the front door that proclaimed the blended Johnson-Ellis family and listed everyone's names except mine, even though that is also my children's last name. I said nothing. Another small war not worth fighting. The definitive blow came one weekend when Declan, with total naturalness, told me at dinner, "Daddy Derek is going to teach me how to ride a bike." I choked on my pizza. "Daddy Derek?" I repeated, stunned. "Yes, Mom's husband," he answered as if I were stupid for asking. "Can I call him Daddy Derek? Because he's like my other dad now," he sentenced. I went out to compose myself, and upon returning kept my voice calm. "Look, champ, you already have a dad. Maybe it would be less confusing if you just called him Derek." He shrugged and explained, "Mom says Daddy Derek is more respectful." That night I texted Brittany, "Can we talk about the Daddy Derek thing? I don't feel comfortable." It took her an hour to reply. "It was Declan's idea. Don't make it a drama." I understood it, but understanding wasn't agreeing. I forced my lips to stay shut while striving to give them stability. I got promoted twice at work. I saved every last penny and bought a modest but cozy house in a good school district. Meanwhile, Derek missed no opportunity to throw passive-aggressive comments at school events. One parent-teacher night, after admiring the robotic arm Declan presented at the science fair, capable of lifting marbles, he approached me and said mockingly, "Must be great to have income for luxuries, right? When one only takes care of 2 kids." I drove a 5-year-old second-hand Honda, but I answered, measuring every word, "Some of us understand sacrifice." He, pointing to his designer watch, shrugged. I just walked away. The end-of-year field trip turned out even more exasperating. I offered to help as a chaperone, as did Derek, and he spent the 6 hours bragging about the vacation to Hawaii he was planning with Brittany, the next-gen console he had bought for everyone, and how rewarding but difficult it was to raise 4 children. He repeated, "our children," endlessly when referring to Declan and Zara, and I felt my blood boil. When he tried to discuss my custody agreement, suggesting the children live more stably with them during the week and visit me only on weekends, I had to stifle my reaction. I'm sorry, but that question is not open for debate. The real battle began when Brittany started demanding I include Lyra in my plans. Don't you think it would be nice to bring her a birthday present when you pick up Declan and Zara? She reproached me, painting me as a monster if I arrived with gifts only for my children. Then she suggested weekend excursions with all four, claiming they are all siblings. I replied that I was glad they got along, but my time with Declan and Zara was limited, and I wanted to focus on them. That accusation of excluding her daughter became a constant. Meanwhile, my kids excitedly recounted Derek's family adventures at Disney, or in the snow. One afternoon during the drive back, Declan was restless and finally confided. Last night, Mom and Derek said things about you. I was listening. Dad. I felt a knot in my stomach and whispered, What did they say? He, head down, explained, Derek said you are selfish and that you only care about looking like the cool dad. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles throbbed. I looked at him tenderly. That's not true. I love you and Zara more than anything. If you ever hear something that worries you, talk to me. There are no secrets between us. He nodded, relieved. I never allowed my children to hear more adult disputes. However, Brittany's financial demands kept rising, even though Declan at 7 and Zara at 5 were excelling in school. Since I discovered the Westridge Private Academy, specializing in STEM, I knew that although the tuition of $12,000 a year per child was high, it would be worth it for Declan and Zara's education. I pitched the idea to Brittany to enroll our children in this elite school, offering to cover 100% of their tuition, but she responded with a guilt trip. She argued it wouldn't be fair if Lyra was left out and accused me of creating family divisions. I didn't yield. I explained that I would pay for Declan and Zara's education, and the rest was her and Derek's responsibility. Still, Brittany enrolled Lyra with money from Derek's parents. Every conversation about expenses, opportunities, or gifts had become a battlefield. I expected them to do the same for their other children. The tension reached its peak last spring, when Declan and Zara were accepted into Future Colorado, a tech camp where only 40 kids from the entire country get a spot. Declan, at 9, was already programming his own Minecraft mods, and Zara won the state robotics contest with her waste-sorting robot. I clearly remember that afternoon at the kitchen table, Declan reviewing essays and correcting every comma, Zara bouncing with excitement while uploading videos of her robot. A month later, we received the acceptance letters. We had dinner together at home, and after dessert, I let them open the email. Zara's screams celebrating her victory echoed through the neighborhood, and Declan read the message over and over, unable to believe the news. The next morning, I took them for ice cream and promised new laptops for the camp. That family euphoria made me feel that all the sacrifices, driving an old car, living in a smaller apartment, and giving up vacations, had been worth it. But when speaking with Brittany at our monthly co-parenting meeting, her gestures said it all. No congratulations, no enthusiasm. On the contrary, her cold stare upon hearing the cost of $4,800 per child, plus flights and materials, almost $20,000 total, confirmed she only cared about creating an excuse to involve Lyra. She's also interested in robotics, she told me. I insisted that this achievement was Declan and Zara's merit, and that it wasn't a family trip. Her response froze my blood. There must be some way for Lyra to participate, and for you to fund it. I wondered if I was dreaming when she asked me to pay another $8,000. The next morning, Declan called me distressed. Brittany had told him they wouldn't go if Lyra didn't get in. I reminded him that his spot was the fruit of his effort and he shouldn't give it up. Still, he needed to hear from me that everything would be fine. Then I sent a message to Brittany demanding she stop manipulating the children. Her only response was a thumbs-down emoji. 2 days later, while working on a presentation, I received a text from Derek. They wanted to talk about my contribution to the rent. I thought it would be something passing and didn't give it importance, but upon picking up the kids, Brittany handed me a printed spreadsheet and a 90s-style letter. In it, She highlighted that the rent of $2,400 a month caused an imbalance for Declan and Zara and claimed I should cover 50%. I reminded her calmly that that was my house, my money, and her situation didn't concern me. Derek reappeared like an echo. A real man supports the whole house. In that instant, I understood it wasn't about the children, but about funding their life. I walked up to Derek. A real man pays his expenses instead of asking his wife's ex to subsidize his lifestyle. He turned red, and Brittany tried to mediate. It's not extortion, it's co-parenting. I replied, co-parenting doesn't mean paying your bills or Derek's. Declan and Zara are my children. The little ones got in the car while I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. Are you okay, Dad? Declan asked from the back seat. I smiled and replied, yes, just thinking about what movie to watch tonight. Upon arriving home, I went out to the porch with a beer, trembling with helplessness. I called my friend Phil, who went through a similar separation. Should I help them financially? I consulted him. He didn't hesitate. You pay for your children's education, school, health insurance, household expenses, but whether your ex lives in a nice apartment or not isn't your problem. If they eat, sleep, and feel loved, they are fine. He was right, although the emotional traps made me question my sanity. Was I being selfish? Was I hurting my children? That night, before sleeping, I understood that setting boundaries doesn't make me a bad father. My children proved their worth. My responsibility is to protect their effort and joy without yielding to family blackmail. A week after the rent ambush came the real trap. I thought I was meeting a mother and the school counselor to talk, coffee in hand, about how my kids were doing. But upon entering, Brittany, Derek, and the counselor awaited me with grave looks. As soon as I sat down, Brittany put on a show. She said my irregular way of parenting was emotionally damaging the children. They accused me of taking only my children on excursions, refusing to pay for Lyra's camp, and living in a better house only for myself. Derek, phone in hand, swiped through slides of their family vacation in San Diego. Look how happy the 4 kids look together, he bragged. Then he added with a pitiful voice, but when he takes Declan and Zara separately, it creates an artificial separation. I felt my face burn. Every fiber of my instinct screamed at me to leave, but I forced composure and stayed there. Then Brittany stood up, faked sobs, and claimed that Declan came home crying, feeling guilty about Lyra's luck, who couldn't go to camp. A lie. He had been running around with energy for weeks. Derek intervened. Zara behaves badly because you treat her differently from her siblings. The same guy who barely knows their schedules pretended to explain their emotions. I cut the farce and told them point blank, Zara only has one brother here, Declan. There is no confusion. That was the agreement when you signed the divorce. Brittany retorted, you deny the reality of their blended family. I reminded her that my children live in 2 houses just as we agreed. Then Derek, with disdain, sentenced, it bothers you that they have a complete family with us, but you punish your children for your own insecurity. I looked him in the eyes and asked, complete family? The one that tells my son he's being held back with us? The one that makes my daughter feel guilty for earning a place in a program? That is complete for you? Brittany put on an offended face and raised her voice. If you don't see how harmful your conduct is, we will review the custody agreement. We are ready to request primary custody for emotional negligence. Silence fell. They were threatening to take my children away because I refused to fund my ex's stepdaughter's camp and pay their rent. I took a deep breath, and with a serene voice, but full of contained rage, I stated, I have never neglected my children, nor will I. I have given them everything within my reach. I have been in every important moment of their lives. If you insinuate otherwise, you will have to present proofs beyond the fact that I won't pay for Lyra's camp. Brittany sketched a wicked smile. We have ample documentation of your lack of support for a healthy family environment. The courts take it very seriously. Something in me broke. Not from anger, but from a crystalline clarity. I had spent years defending peace, swallowing my words. And for what? so that now they could try to snatch my children from me. I stood up, gathered my things, and looked them in the eye. That's enough. Any communication regarding custody, do it through my lawyer. I left the room with my heart racing, got to the car, closed the door, and stayed there a minute with my hands shaking. That same day I made 2 calls, to the best family lawyer in the city and to my friend Phil, a computer forensics expert. On the surface, nothing changed. I followed the same visitation schedule, picked up and dropped off the kids politely, and avoided responding to provocations. But behind the scenes, Phil recovered 3 years of deleted messages between Brittany and me. Every blackmail, every threat. And I compiled my financial records, tuitions, medical expenses, extracurricular activities, every receipt. I also installed a front-facing camera in my car, dash cam, to record conversations during transfers and kept the rent claim letter and other written requests. My lawyer soon organized all the evidence as if she were waiting for it. Manipulative messages, proofs of my consistency, recordings of Derek and Brittany's attitudes. I spent sleepless nights detailing every exchange of words, every breach of promises, driven by that primal instinct to protect my children. There were moments of doubt. I woke up sweating cold, wondering if I was overreacting or if this would damage them. But I remembered the threat to take away custody and understood there was no turning back. Meanwhile, Brittany grew emboldened, believing her warnings were taking effect. She sent a formal email demanding $8,500 for Lyra to attend an equivalent summer program and copied her sister and mother in a chorus of reproach about my bad parenting. Everything went straight to my lawyer's file without a single response from me. But the true turning point came when one night I received a text from Declan. I'm sick of the constant fights between Mom and her new boyfriend about money. That time, Derek told him point blank, "You should act like a man and help them. After all, you're with your kids half the time." Reading those words, I felt like I had been hit with a bat in the chest. I screenshot the message. Using my son's conversation as proof broke my heart. The next day, I picked up Declan earlier than usual. In the car, he confessed that Derek had bragged about having a more luxurious house because, according to him, I didn't maintain a real family. Furthermore, he told him he had made Lyra cry by refusing to pay for her camp. I asked him if that bothered him. With his head down, he nodded. "It makes me feel like we are a problem," he told me. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I decided to request 70-30 custody and demand that all communication with my ex and Derek go through a court-supervised app. When I communicated my decision, my phone exploded with calls and text messages. Even Brittany's mother tried to mediate. I didn't respond to any notification. 2 days later, Brittany approached me to ask if all this was because of the camp. I was very clear. No, this is about you using our children as a weapon because I won't fund your life. She stammered a weak denial, but I interrupted her. Save it for the judge. From now on, talk to my lawyer or use the app. The following week, Derek tried to confront me in the school parking lot, throwing the usual insults, accusing me of being selfish and hiding behind lawyers. I didn't even look at him. I simply pointed to my dash cam, and he, realizing every word was being recorded, walked away without uttering a sound. The weeks before the hearing were unbearable. Brittany went overboard with impromptu gifts, trips to amusement parks on school nights, and late nights. Classic parental alienation tactics. I documented every detail but didn't talk to the kids about the conflict. I kept our routine to the letter. First homework, then playtime, homemade dinner, and bedtime on the dot. My lawyer warned me that in the courtroom they would paint me as a controlling father jealous of their happy family. Don't fall into the trap, she told me. Let the evidence speak. 6 weeks later, the big day arrived. I presented text messages, financial demands, recordings, and even statements from my own children about the pressure they suffered. Brittany's lawyer got nervous, and the judge, after reading the conversation where Derek called my kids a burden, made it clear I was not obligated to support children who were not biologically mine. He ruled in my favor. 70-30 custody, restricted communication via the app. Furthermore, he ordered them to cover my legal fees totaling $14,380. I didn't celebrate a victory, but my liberation. Finally, I had control of the rules. I bought a modest house near the STEM Academy, efficient and completely ours. I installed a tech room for the kids. The first night, we set up their gaming rigs. We stayed up late building structures in Minecraft. We ate pizza on the floor between sleeping bags and enjoyed a tranquility I hadn't felt in years. Since then, all communication goes through the app. Goodbye to unexpected messages, fake emergencies, and emotional blackmail. My children are blossoming. They are more relaxed. They speak honestly. One day, Zara looked at me shyly and asked if it was okay to be happy with me. I smiled and assured her she always had been. Shortly after, I hired a courier who left the legal bill at Brittany and Derek's house, along with a note. My commitment is to my children, not your lifestyle. My children responded with successes. Declan was invited back to the camp as a junior mentor, and Zara's robotics team advanced to nationals. 6 months later, calm reigned. Declan entered an elite coding program at 13, and Zara competes in a national robotics tournament. I, for my part, recovered my identity. I started dating a smart, down-to-earth teacher. Zero drama. Our first date was authentic, without emotional landmines. Then Declan, focused on the screen while we coded together, looked up and said, "I'm glad you stood up to Mom and Derek." He was crossing the line. In that instant, I knew I had made the right decision. Not just for me, but for them. I no longer survive. I live, and no one will ever drain me again.